If you're an Xbox collector, you know it's been difficult to come by physical releases these days. But back when we started collecting for the Xbox One, we focused on getting physical copies that were more of the unusual titles out there. So in today's episode, that's exactly what we want to highlight.
And here are some games that we picked up along the way that we think you should add to your Xbox One collection too. This first one is a game that both Rumble and I have played, and that is Bendy and the Ink Machine. This game came out in 2018 as a physical release for Xbox One. This game was developed by Joey Drew Studios, and Joey Drew Studios has pretty much only made Bendy games so far. If you haven't played these games or haven't seen much about the Bendy universe, these games are kind of a creepy cartoon-inspired horror adventure, but this one is set inside an abandoned animation studio where the ink creations have started to come to life, really. And you are battling them, but you're also teaming up with some of them as well, and just kind of learning their backstories about how they got this way, what happened to the studio, and trying to figure your own way out too, and your own backstory as well.
And what I think is most unique about this is just that whole 1930s cartoon style game. And I think the toys for a while there got more of the attention than the actual game, because this originated first on PC and then eventually it came to consoles as well. And I still really like this game as just like a first person, I think you can still call it like a survival horror game as well. And it's kind of become an iconic series that we continuously go back to and talk about. And like you said in the beginning, we'll get into the physical aspect of this. Limited Run just announced like a triple release for the newest games in a sense. I mean, the remaster of this game, and then the Dark Revival, and then you have Bendy Lone Wolf, which is Boris basically. So we of course had to pre-order that too, but then that kind of made us go back to these physical releases and look at the differences, because there were two physical releases here.
The first version was originally released as a GameStop exclusive, and that's why it does have that whole only at GameStop logo on the case there. But then later it received a wider retail reprint, and that made it a lot more accessible for everybody. I think you can usually find these games reasonably priced, whether it is the GameStop version or just the Joey Drew Studios version.
So at that point then, it just wasn't a GameStop exclusive, so that's why the price for this has been pretty much around $15 to $20 consistently. I think that's kind of what you're looking at here. But we thought we would bring this one up because we really like the Bendy series, and that's why we wanted to bring attention to this one, because this is still the only Xbox One release for this game up until now. But again, if you're interested in getting those limited run releases, then pre-orders are live right now, so you can always do that as well if you want to get them all on Series X. But this is the Xbox One version, at least. I think this game flew under a lot of people's radar because it came out late Xbox One era, and I know that I bought it and played a good chunk of this game when it first came out, and then I kind of forgot about it. But then when I saw it on our shelf, I was like, we got to talk about this game because it's kind of unique. And that's Vampyr. I think it's how you say it. I don't know if it's vampire or Vampyr, but
I like Vampyr better.
Yeah, it's French probably, so let's go with that. This game actually came out in 2018, and it was developed by Don't Nod, which you know from Life is Strange, of course, Tell Me Why, and some Game Pass games lately, like Jusant, and there's other ones too, Aphelion, I think, but you get the picture. That's Don't Nod basically making a ton of different games, but most known for Life is Strange, of course. This is a third-person action RPG, which fascinates me, but it sounds like it might be up your alley as well in terms of the RPG aspect of this, because what's unique about this, you are a doctor, but you're also a vampire. So this game just revolves around this morality system where you have to choose basically, like, do you want to save people and help them, or do you want to feed your bloodthirsty self to survive and upgrade basically your stats? Because that's how it is with RPGs. Get your skills up and just the overall progression. So this is one of the most fascinating RPGs, at least that I've come across and played. So I can't wait to go back to it and play even more of it.
There is not a lot of vampire RPGs out there. I did recently watch a YouTube video. It was like a deep dive on this other vampire RPG that came out on the PS1. So obviously a very long time ago, but it never came stateside. So it was just stayed in Japan only. So this concept really intrigues me because I can't think of another like vampire RPG.
So this game has become sort of a cult following. So that's why I'm a little bit surprised that, even the price of something like this hasn't gone up a lot more than this. Because you can still find Vampyr for about $10 to $15. So that's a fantastic price to add such a unique RPG to your collection. And, it's a game that I would recommend checking out. It might not have gotten the greatest accolades in terms of critics or reviews, but anytime I see a cult classic and a unique game like this, I always think it's worth adding to your collection.
And if you want to travel back to the 80s and join a moving team, basically, we've got the game for you. That is Moving Out. I know that's a little bit of a cheesy beginning, but this game is cheesy.
The beginning of the game is cheesy with the music.
Oh my god, yeah, the music, and then they have an awesome 80s style training videos that you have to go through in order to just get started in the game.
It brought me back to the old training videos, like Old Country Buffet or something like that, where they learn how to carve meat and stuff. That's it's just that the 80s vibe, 80s or 90s, whatever.
Yeah, it totally does. They nail it, and this game was put out in 2020 and developed by SMG Studio. They made some other games too, like Death Squared. I know I've seen that several times.
We did play that one.
Yeah, exactly.
We did. That's the little robots. It's kind of like a
blue and red little robot guys.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game, so you kind of have to move on top of each other or but it's been a while since we played it. But that's one of the reasons I think we were interested in this one too, but also because this is obviously reminiscent of Overcooked.
Yeah. Also, this game is one of the few couch co-op games out there. However, I think this one is probably more difficult than Overcooked, at least if you're going for achievements, that's for sure, They did put out a Moving Out 2, but we haven't played that one yet because I don't think I can talk Rumble into it yet, basically. We played this game on Xbox One, we played it on the PC as well, and we got all the achievements.
I think moving in real life made me put a hold on the Moving Out game, so I it would be too much stress on playing it and then doing it in real life. But I do think this may have been local, and then Moving Out 2 may have been online, but that's just, I mix up this and Overcooked quite a bit when it comes to the online co-op.
But like we said, it's a moving game, but that's a little bit ambiguous, but you're helping people move out of their houses, you're loading all of their furniture into the back of your truck, and that means that you have to collaborate with each other to move beds or couches. There are some single items that you can just carry yourself, you can just toss that into the back of the truck, and I mean that's what part of the humor of this game is. It is very physics based though, and it's kind of that chaotic physics based. I wouldn't quite say human fall flat type style, but it can feel a little bit chaotic as you move your character through these levels, and they give you lots of challenges too in each level, to where it's don't break any of the glass or don't step on any of the rakes. And there's even a farm level where you're moving these farm animals into the back of the truck, so it definitely gets pretty crazy in this game. It's
a really fun game though, I have to say, in terms of co-op and couch co-op games. If you like Overcooked, absolutely a game like this is fantastic to play, but don't expect every level to be super easy. That's why I think we thought at first, just all these people playing couch co-op, and there was a phase there where a lot of couch co-ops made a comeback, but then you realize they're not as easy as you would think.
No, you definitely have to be able to coordinate and strategize together. I think this one is definitely one to add to your collection though, because it is one of the few couch co-op games that you can physically add to your Xbox One collection. Also, this one, it's not ever too expensive, and I think is pretty easy to find, and it comes in around $12 to $18 generally. If you have added Overcooked to your collection, as well as maybe some other party game, I think this is definitely one that you should have in your collection too.
I'm still leaning into the whole forgotten games here, during the time where you're more or less towards the end of the Xbox One here as well, or kind of midway through. And that game is The Surge. And it came out in 2017, and this is a game by Deck 13 Interactive. Other games that this developers made, they made a sequel to this one, The Surge 2. They've also made Atlas Fallen. and another game that you may know, Lords of the Fallen. So this game follows in the same kind of genre there as a third-person Souls-like action RPG. And it's got great controls as well, and it, like I said, it plays like a Souls-like game. So if you want to have a little bit of a different setting for your Souls-like games rather than the fantasy world, this is more of a sci-fi setting, you know, this is one that you shouldn't really miss.
When I saw the back of this game, it made me laugh a little bit and also intrigued me because it does mention the whole unique limb targeting system, but also it mentioned that part too about cut off parts of the enemy you want to loot.
Yeah, it's one of those, like I said, it just kind of, again, flew under people's radar and just people forgot about it because it was during a time where people tried to recreate the Souls-like a lot. And before this, Lords of the Fallen had come out, which is very much a Dark Souls type game, right? And this one tried something different, so I think people just assumed that, oh, it's just going to be more of the same. But it turns out, yeah, this is a very different type of game, and this is one that's worth checking out. And especially since the price of this one really has never gone up a whole lot. You know, you can find this game for around $10 again, and we like to be very budget friendly here. You know, we don't try to recommend super expensive games to you guys. And for $10, this is a very solid Souls-like action RPG that it's worth trying.
I feel pretty lucky that I get to present this game because we both have played it. It is another co-op game, and it is probably one of our favorites too. And that is Remnant from the Ashes. This game came out physically in 2019. The developer of this one is Gunfire Games. They obviously made the other Remnant 2, and they also did Darksiders 3. And before this game, they worked on Chronos Before the Ashes, which is also part of the Remnant universe. This is a third-person shooter action RPG, and completely surprised me that it would be one of my favorite games I've ever played.
And this game is truly special to us. We can probably turn this whole episode into a Remnant episode. And we're actually surprised that more people haven't talked about it. Obviously, on this platform, a ton of people talk about the Remnant games because they did eventually get a sequel as well. But I'm surprised by how much we've actually mentioned this game, and no one has actually come back to us and said, I love Remnant. And maybe it's one of those games that you don't tend to play alone. You obviously can play it alone, but it is a fantastic three-player co-op game, which we also know around that time where three-player co-op games also started becoming kind of a thing as well. I hadn't played a whole lot of Dark Souls or anything like that. So, and people always say that this is like Dark Souls with guns, but to us, this is a way different experience than just that. So, you know, and that's what kind of caught us. I thought I would convince you to play an RPG. You hadn't really played too many third-person shooters except for Zombie Army. And I was like, let me combine those two and see if she'll like this. And turns out you really loved it.
I loved this game, and I actually loved the whole procedural world generation that they do in this one. It keeps it interesting. You don't know what kind of loot you're going to find in each level, sometimes even what kind of enemy. And then you go through these kind of like shadow doors that you're not sure what boss you're going to get for that world.
Oh, that's like the Dark Souls thing, I think.
Yeah,
at least.
So I mean, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool. But in this setting in particular, it also has a cool story to go along with it as well. And I love the guns in this game. And especially once we got that like laser gun, that was like, that was where it was at. I love that gun.
By the time we got to Remnant 2, we were like, where is this laser gun? I mean, eventually we did find it, a variant of that in that game too.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things, where you just wanted to play more. And it could have easily been a frustrating game, right? I think a lot of people find that Souls-like or like the, not roguelike, but, you know, just that whole, you don't know what's going to happen next kind of thing, or you don't know where the boss is going to be. It can get pretty frustrating. But for us, it was just like worth it. If we didn't succeed, we just tried again. And some of those early bosses too, they were pretty difficult. So
brutal.
Just to continue that and do it as a team as well was very satisfying. So for me, this is one of the best co-op games we've ever played by far.
Yep, 100%. And the best part about this game is if you want to add it to your collection physically, it comes in around $12 to $18. So again, under $20, really cheap and absolutely fantastic game.
I would say on average, you probably see it under $20, but I've seen the price on this one go up. So I would recommend looking for this one right now because I don't know why the price has gone up lately, but every time we go to a game store now and look for it, it's upwards to 30 at times. And again, definitely worth finding this one right now. And this is probably the only physical release in this episode that's a little bit more expensive and harder to find than the others. And that game is Maid of Sker. I think I always just question myself on this one.
Who knows?
If I'm a Southern gentleman, I might sound a little bit different on this one, but I think it's English, so Maid of Sker, probably.
Maid of Sker.
Let us know if you're British. Let us know in the comments how to say this, and I don't know how you're going to explain it to us, but do your best. We appreciate it. This game came out in 2020, and it's developed by Wales Interactive. And one of the things that drew me to this one is that I'd actually played a bunch of games by Wales Interactive, and they're mostly known for making the FMV games, so the full motion video. Those are kind of like, you know, it's real life movie in a sense, but it's plays like a visual novel too, where you make choices. So when they made this first person survival horror game with stealth in there as well, it's not quite like Outlast, you know, that we covered in one of the previous episodes in the series, but it does have that first person survival horror where some hide and seek in some ways. We have to avoid enemies, and you know, this game starts out pretty quietly where you think it's just like a first person adventure game maybe, or like a walking sim, but that soon changes obviously once you get into this game. So this game takes place in a haunted hotel where you are just essentially trying to avoid these blind enemies that hunt using sound only. So you have to be obviously very quiet when you play this game. Thankfully, I don't think it has like a Kinect kind of motion thing.
Yeah,
like,
goodness gracious.
Alien Isolation had early on. That was something that kind of freaked people out a little bit. They were using a Kinect to play that game, but essentially that's what you're doing in this horror game. And it's not just due to the price here that I'm recommending this game, but also if you are into the first-person survival horror games, there were a lot of these types of games from, I would say, from the PT trailer or like the demo until 2020, and they're still going on with all of these first person survival horror games. So yeah, if you like that type of game, you know, this is actually a good one to pick up and play. And usually for this one, like I said in the beginning, the price for this one has sort of always been high. We picked this one up at a clearance at Best Buy. So first and foremost, like obviously if you're here and you have access to Best Buy or getting shipped to you, we always recommend checking the clearance section for like indie games and AA games, because once they clear out, they kind of tend to go up in price online, right? And we've seen that. And this was one weird one where I just snapped up on the clearance and I had a feeling that this would go up in price. So we're obviously recommending you guys pick this up, you know, so it usually goes for around $20 to $30. So it's not too terrible really, but this is one that I think is going to be rare and hard to find. So that's why I'm recommending that you pick this one up now, because as we've covered in other videos too, these horror games on Xbox One in particular, they're going to be a little bit of a rarity to find later on. So yeah, get this one today.
I have a spiritual successor to many people's favorite platformers back from the N64 days, actually, and that is Yooka-Laylee. This game came out physically in 2017. It's developed by Platonic Games. This was a fresh studio that is made up of a lot of former team members that worked on Rare games in the past. Some of them worked on games like Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, as well as even Donkey Kong Country. So this was a very anticipated title. We hadn't seen too many platformers that were reminiscent of the N64 days of Banjo-Kazooie. And I will say this one did nail it. I mean, it's very much similar to Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, you have your little guy on your back. It's a very colorful game. It has that kind of storybook, jump into the storybook, you know, for the different levels. It's a collect-a-thon style platformer, and it is a ton of fun too.
And it's always very typical too when fans of a series, they don't get to see the next entry, and then obviously something like this is presented, and I do think this may have been like a Kickstarter, like some crowd-funded project, right? So, you know, typically you hear more about them because everyone hypes it up and it's a highly anticipated title, like you said. And that's how I found out about this game, was just basically through the Banjo-Kazooie fans. And I don't have a history with that series, so I don't really know, but I can see even on the cover that this is, yeah, going to be the same exact type of game.
I think this one is worth adding to your collection just due to the relation that it has to Rare's legacy, and especially since it is the spiritual successor to such a iconic game back from the N64. Usually you can find this game for $10 to $15, so it's always very reasonable.
But when you mentioned that this is actually a very affordable game, it doesn't mean that it's easy to find, though. It took us a little bit to find this one, at least in game stores. I think that's where we eventually ended up picking it up for around that price. But if you look online, they might be a little bit higher. So you might want to consider that too. And especially since the remaster just came out like recently as well, the Yooka-Laylee or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's also a sort of a sequel to this one as well called The Impossible Layer. But this was the first one. And for those reasons, it's worth picking this one up and adding it to your collection. Because anytime there's a remaster and stuff, I always tend to look back at the originals too. So we have the last one here. And this is also another unique game that I really enjoyed playing. And that's a game called RiME. It's spelled R-I-M-E, so it's not like R-H-Y-M-E, I guess, but it's RiME. And this came out in 2017, and this is a game by Tequila Works, which I've briefly talked about before. And they've made games like Deadlight, Invisible Hours, that obviously I talked about in a different video. We've made a lot of videos lately, so yeah, there's a lot of crossovers, and we love it, because that means we get to talk about some of our favorite indie and AA developers. And this is more or less one of those chill adventure games where you just explore the environment, solve puzzles, and that's kind of how it does the storytelling in this game. And when I've mentioned Tequila Works before, they make all sorts of different genres, you know, and I really like the way that they present the games too, because in some of them they can have dialogue and storytelling through there where you get to know the characters, and but you essentially play as a boy who wakes up after a storm, and he is trying to get to this tower at the end of this. And you know, there's a lot of really good puzzles in here too. You use a little bit of time manipulation, some light and dark mechanics for your puzzles. And so it's just like I said, Tequila Works makes a lot of interesting games. And this is one that you should definitely add to your list, both adding it to your collection and playing this game. This is a great adventure game. And this is also a very cheap game physically. You can get it for probably around $10 to $15. You know, that's usually around the price that we got this one and added to our collection. And it's just, again, one of those like frequently underrated gems, you know, on the Xbox One, especially in terms of indie games, and still affordable. And it's a great storytelling adventure. Thanks for watching today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Also, don't forget to check out this video because they really don't want you to leave YouTube.
And be sure to like and subscribe. And also, if you're on your phone, hype this video up so we can get even more exposure and get more people buying Xbox One physicals.
This isn't goodbye forever because we'll be back very soon.
Bye!